Hi guys, it's me, Chazza HD, and welcome to the first watch-along back on this channel, the Chazza HD F1 channel, since pre-season testing, and the first watch-along of the actual 2020 Formula 1 Season 4. First off, the only practice session of the weekend here at Imola for the 2020 Emilia Romagna Grand Prix. Very unusual name. In my head, it's still the San Marino Grand Prix, and I'm sure you guys agree. But yeah, we are racing finally back at Imola, 14 years away. It's been way too long to be away from this place. And of course, as you can see on screen, it does have a bad history, but it also does have a good history as well for great races, famous moments, legendary victories, victories by legendary drivers. So it's great to be back here, and I can't wait to see how in the first and only practice session that they have before qualifying, how the drivers get on, the teams get on, and who out of the blocks, I guess, looks as though they have the pace at Imola. I don't think anyone can really say. I mean, Mercedes are going to have the best car. We know this. Max Verstappen will probably be in the top three. And then after that, who knows what's going to happen? Maybe Charles Leclerc will continue his great performances. Maybe Renault will be up there. McLaren, I'm sure, will be in there. So will Racing Point. AlphaTauri, could they be in the top 10? How will Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams do? I honestly don't think we can say. The only thing I think we can say is the top three is most likely going to be Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen. Maybe not in that order, but I think definitely those three will be occupying the top three positions in whatever order it is, either in practice or in qualifying. After that, though, what a mega fight it really is going to be. And hello to you guys if you are joining me live. Very early time in the morning, almost 10 to 9 in the morning for practice one here at Imola. Great to see you here. And hopefully, with me, you will enjoy and watch along qualifying practice here at Imola if you do have access to, watching the practice session. If you don't, then you can just listen along and let me guide you through the hour-and-a-half session that will commence in about 12 minutes' time. But before we get into practice, let me first get into the standings coming into this race, because it is important. The driver's standings and the battle in certain areas in that place, and also the constructor standings. The fight for third place is probably the most interesting battle when it comes to any of the championships at the moment. So, yeah, we definitely need to have a look at that before practice gets underway. So first off, here are the driver's standings. Here is the first 10. So, Lewis Hamilton, of course, leading the championship. I don't think Lewis Hamilton can officially wrap it up this weekend. I think he can in Turkey, but I don't think he can this weekend. If I am wrong, though, make sure to correct me. Valtteri Bottas second, only, was it 17 points ahead? Is it, of Max Verstappen? Yes, it is. So Max still in there, possibly second in the championship, which would be amazing for him to get if he did get that by the end of the season. And then Daniel Ricciardo fourth in the Renault. Who would have thought that coming into the season? Fifth, Charles Leclerc. Sixth, Perez. Seventh, Norris. Eighth, Albon. Ninth, Gasly. 10th, Carlos Sainz. And then just below Sainz, you can see there Lance Stroll, who's had a tough time as of late in the Racing Point. And then the rest of the drivers is Ocon 12th, and then a massive gap back to Sebastian Vettel in 13th place. Lucky for some. 14th, Kvyat. 15th, Hülkenberg. Just shows you how quick the Racing Point has been compared to the Alfa Romeo, Haas and Williams cars. The Hülkenberg has only done, let's be honest, 2 races. I know he did 3 weekends, but he only did really 2 actual races, and has more points than those drivers and will probably finish that way. And then 16th, Antonio Giovinazzi. 17th, Kimi Raikkonen. 18th, Grosjean. 19th, Magnussen. 20th is Nicholas Latifi. And bottom is George Russell in the Williams. By the way, and actually we'll get into it in a minute, but there is some news when it comes to Alfa Romeo as to their driver lineup, which I'll update you guys with in a minute. If you're unsure as to what that news is, or if you haven't heard what that news is. Here is the Constructor Standings. So you have Mercedes in P1, of course, and 209 points, I believe that is, ahead of Red Bull Racing. And I think Mercedes can wrap up the Constructors this weekend. I'm not entirely sure the exact permutations, but I think they can. I remember back in Portugal, Martin Brundle said that they could there, so I'm guessing they can here. I don't know what the exact result, though, is needed for that result to happen. Red Bull second, 100 points clear of Racing Point third, and in the battle for third in the Constructors, look how close it is. Racing Point third, only 2 points ahead of McLaren, and then Renault 6 points back on Racing Point. Only 6 points separating three teams in a massive and vital fight for third in the Constructors. Ferrari 6th, AlphaTauri 7th. That's still a good fight there for 6th in the Constructors. And then Alfa Romeo 8th, Haas 9th, and Williams in 10th place. So, there is your standings. I'll bring back these pictures. And again, as I was saying a minute ago, there is some good moments around this track and this place, but we do have to remember the sad moments as well, and I think that picture sums it up, to be honest. And it is quite an emotional return to this circuit, and to be honest, when it comes to, say, Lewis Hamilton breaking the 92 race win record, which he did last weekend, of course, at the Portuguese Grand Prix. By the way, if you haven't checked out yet my review for that Grand Prix weekend, I uploaded it yesterday on the channel. So if you go to my channel page, it'll be the featured video on the channel, whether you're subscribed or not. And if you are not subscribed, then make sure to do so for more F1 content like this. I did a weekend review, 12 minutes long, so make sure to go check that out during the weekend. But it would have been honestly fitting if Lewis Hamilton had got the 92nd win here at Imola, because of course this was the place where Ayrton Senna sadly passed away, but also this was also the place of, you know, Michael Schumacher's last pole position, real pole position. I don't think we can count Monaco 2012, to be honest. But yeah, I think, you know, it would have been fitting if he got it here. But of course, he got it in Portugal with an absolutely amazing drive. Amazing drive. And this weekend, I think Valtteri Bottas can definitely beat Hamilton, but he needs to be near perfect. He has to try and get pole position. Even though, if you look at the record of pole position to race wins around this circuit, say from 95 when they redesigned the track massively up until 2006, pole position I think it's only won 3 times. So not vital that you get pole, but it is of course very important. If you're going to win the race though, you've got to be on the front row. I think that's pretty clear if you look at the history of this track and who wins from what positions. You've got to be on the front row of the grid. If you're not, then most likely it's not going to happen. So yeah, but you know, Bottas, if he gets pole position, great, but that doesn't mean he's going to win the race, as we've seen previously. But, you know, if he gets ahead at the start of the Grand Prix tomorrow and starts, obviously he's going to start first or second, then that is his big chance around, you know, a proper old school, proper driver's circuit to really show that he can compete with Lewis Hamilton and that he can compete at that level. Even if it's brief, at least he can show he can compete at that level. You know, again, this is a proper circuit for drivers to show how good they really are. It really does separate the men from the boys, as they say. So does tracks like the Nürburgring and, you know, Spa and tracks like that and Silverstone. So it's one of those circuits where Valtteri's got to prove a point, and I hope he does. As for the rest of the grid, Red Bull, Albon's going to struggle. I think Albon is basically done in Formula 1, as I've said before. Ferrari, I don't really know what Ferrari are going to be like this weekend. If you look at this circuit, it's similar to the Nürburgring in terms of your speed around the track. And of course, there Leclerc qualified in 4th and Sebastian Vettel qualified P11. So I guess you could say that's probably what Ferrari are aiming for. Maybe they can try and get Sebastian into the top 10. Sebastian, I don't think, has ever driven a Formula 1 car around here. So, well, maybe he did for BMW, like, right before they decided not to race here anymore. But, yeah, hard to say really what Sebastian is going to do around here. Charles Leclerc, I'm pretty sure, has raced around here in some kind of junior formula. I know Max Verstappen, of course, has. Esteban Ocon, I'm sure, has. Lance Stroll. Lewis Hamilton has when he was in GP2. Kimi Raikkonen, of course, has. So not everyone on the grid has, no experience here. They do have experience. It's just from quite a long time ago. And the track is slightly different to how it was when we last raced here. For example, the final chicane is no more. So when you exit second Ravazza, the two left-handers at the end of the lap, you go straight onto the pit straight instead of going into that chicane. To be honest, the chicane was fantastic, but if you're going to help overtaking it, it probably is the right decision to get rid of that chicane for this track. But yeah, for the rest of the grid, Renault should be better. Renault should be more top 5, I'd say, with Ricciardo. Racing Point will be in there. McLaren will be in there. AlphaTauri, I'm sure, will be in there somewhere. By the way, just to announce, even though it's been announced, but to announce to you guys, if you haven't heard, Pierre Gasly is confirmed at AlphaTauri for 2021. So if Albon does lose his seat, it'll be to probably Sergio Perez, I'd imagine, because Williams have also, I think, announced their lineup is the same for 2021, which is good, as Russell and Latifi, I think, have done a decent and good job with what they've been given this year. And then for the rest of the grid, Haas, of course, both drivers are fucking off. That's not my words. That's basically Gunther Steiner's words. And then Alfa Romeo will have the same driver lineup for next year. That is confirmed. Kimi Raikkonen and Antonio Giovinazzi. And honestly, I'm happy that that is the case because the same with Williams, I don't feel as though the drivers have actually done anything worthy of being dropped. And I don't think, getting rid of them when the regulations are essentially the same for next season would be the right decision. They need to have continuity to try and fix this car. So hopefully, the car is a bit better next year. And if you actually look at the Alfa Romeo, I mean, of course, it does struggle like the Ferrari Works car and the Haas car for lack of power because of the power unit they have. But if you actually watch the races, they've got some good, levels of downforce, and they do look after their tyres well. It's just, again, they don't have power. Because in the last 2 or 3 races, they've been either in the points or been very close. So I think Alfa Romeo, Ferrari can get a bit more power in that engine, then they should be, say, AlphaTauri-ish next season. So hopefully that is the case. But practice 1, or the only practice session, I guess you could say, is about to start in about a minute's time. In a minute, I'll get rid of these graphics and get all of the graphics ready for the session actually starting. By the way, great to see Nib and Rooksfoot in the chat, and Seki, Hybrid, and Count Blah, another person who's a very loyal viewer. Great to see you. And Ewok in the chat as well, and Victor, and yep, Happy Halloween to all of you. And the practice session has actually got underway, so let me get rid of some of these graphics, and then I'll get everything up. By the way, remember, I haven't done a watch along in a long time, so please do bear with me as I get it all ready. So switch to that, and that's the wrong one. There you go. Let me just get up the sidebar. Yeah, there you go. So in a minute, I will make sure to sync up the time of the session. But the session has officially started. And for, to start with, there won't be any pictures of cars because, well, there hasn't been any running this weekend, so I couldn't have grabbed any. And once there is any pictures on Twitter, I'll make sure to grab some and post them on the screen in a moment, as we have about 4 or 5 cars that I can see on circuit at the moment. At Imola, Lewis Hamilton is on circuit just ahead of a Haas car. And you've got Sebastian Vettel on the track. Romain Grosjean on the track. Lewis Hamilton on the hard compound tyre. So just trying to, get that tyre out of the way. Because I don't imagine it'll be very warm, that tyre. But yeah, there you go. Practice is underway. Just need to wait for the... wait for the actual, them to show the timer. As we're getting an overtake here of Lewis Hamilton and Romain Grosjean overtaking Sebastian Vettel down the straight. They have DRS open though, and Sebastian Vettel does not. Still though, on the TV, not seeing a timer for this session, so sorry about that, guys, but I'm just waiting to see how long is actually left in the session. But they're busy at the moment showing the drivers and constructors standings, as I think we have basically every car on track now. As at the moment on the TV, we're watching Sebastian Vettel looking to, for the first time today, since, would it be Silverstone? Was the last time he qualified in the top 10 for a Grand Prix? I think, was it the British Grand Prix? I don't think it was the 70th anniversary Grand Prix. So, yeah. Hopefully he can. I don't think he will, because I think that car's too slow, and also he isn't happy with the balance of the car, and is completely fed up. Right, finally, we have got the timer back up on the TV. So I'll get the timer up on screen in about 30 seconds time. Let me just see what you guys are saying in the chat. Seki saying Mercedes is using 2 different rear wing downforce setups just to see which rear wing is better. Yeah, well, it's a good opportunity to see, isn't it? As Ricciardo following a Ferrari there. Let me just make sure I get this time up in time. So 3, 2, 1. And there you go. So, hour and 25 to go in FP1, but it is the only practice session of the weekend. Daniel Ricciardo there lets through, I think. Well, he's just warming up his tyres behind, I think it's Charles Leclerc. And as well, like I used to say, once I have time, as we're seeing a replay here of Grosjean and Lance Stroll racing quite hard at the Tamburello chicane. That's the first couple corners on the track. Once I have time to update the order, then I will. And also, when it comes to, if you are new, when it comes to whether there is live footage, please look at the top of the description. It says very clearly the answer to that. As Daniel Ricciardo is weaving about, warming up those hard compound tyres. And is, well, I think still trying to warm up his tyres. Well, now he tries to start his lap. Opens the DRS. Flies down the straight. I'm expecting definitely some overtaking tomorrow. I don't think there'll be as many as there were in Portimao, which, to be honest, might be a good thing because there was too many easy overtakes at that circuit and in that Grand Prix. But, yeah, I think there'll definitely be more overtakes than normal, than we normally have had at Imola. Daniel Ricciardo passing a slow Ferrari on the inside. As Max Verstappen goes P1. Still haven't had, though, that many proper lap times. We've only had about 7 or 8 proper lap times. as the Mercedes is still quite low down. Carlos Sainz goes up to second. Ricciardo now coming up to the chicane towards the end of the lap. Now, this chicane used to be, back in the day, used to be brutal. You used to fly over the top of those curbs and just hope that the car would stick. But then, for the final year of the Grand Prix here at Imola, back in 2006, they decided to ruin that chicane, which is a shame. As he comes into the two Ravazzas, Renault looking pretty balanced. He's not exactly pushing, but yeah, looking pretty balanced. And he'll come to the line and go... Where will he go? As he comes up to the line, I think he's only gone 17th, so it must have been a slow lap. As on the TV we're seeing now Alan Permain, the sporting director of Renault. Becky Hybrid, Villeneuve chicane should be removed. That chicane has no point anymore. Well, I disagree. I like that chicane. And if anyone new is wondering what that chicane is, it's turns 4 and 5, I believe. No, I like that chicane. It's a good chicane. And when you watch in qualifying, it's a very exciting place to watch the cars because they enter so quickly and are, turning, downshifting, and braking at the same time. Very high chance, as we've seen a replay of Bottas lock up into the entry of the first corner. Very high chance of someone going off, and it's just an exciting corner to watch. Now, of course, at the old Imola circuit, pre-Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger sadly passing away, they used to fly around Tamburello. The Tamburello chicane that's there now didn't used to be there. It used to be basically one long left-hander, kind of like you get at the turn 3 at the Circuit de Catalunya. And then they would just fly down the straight to the hairpin. Now, if we had that, would it be exciting? Yes, but rightfully so, the track had to be redesigned. As Daniel Kvyat is now P1 on a 1:17.8. As on the TV, we're currently watching a husky chocolated Carlos Sainz, who is now slowed down on the entry to the first Ravazza. I think to back himself up to avoid catching traffic, but is now held up an AlphaTauri behind him, so not exactly great there by Sainz. As Gasly goes up to third on a 1:18.1. Romain Grosjean goes 7th on an 18.7. Still haven't had that many really proper lap times at the moment. The only two cars in the pits at the moment are Valtteri Bottas and Antonio Giovinazzi, as they're just showing on the screen. Track limits at turn 9, which I believe is it the entry to Acqua Minerale? I believe that is. If I'm wrong, make sure to correct me, but just showing that if you go off past the Sawtooth curbs on the exit, that you will be punished, and the track limits at the chicane at the end of the lap at turn 15, and as well, if you go off there, you'll be punished. I don't think you'll see people doing that, though, because, again, the Sawtooth curbs are on the outside of the circuit, and if you go out there, you'll probably end up hurting your front wing. Right. Let me quickly go into Twitter. By the way, I'm not on Twitter anymore, which is a good thing because Twitter is a awful, cancerous website. As Max Verstappen goes P1 on a 17 flat, but I can still obviously visit the website to grab necessary pictures. If you're wondering why I'm able to do that, so let me just get this picture on screen of a certain record-breaking driver. You just get the picture. So here you go. I'll just readjust it quickly. So there you go. Lewis Hamilton at the Variante Alta. That's the chicane that I was talking about earlier that they ruined in back in 2006. There you go. hopping over the second part. And even though it's not as fast as it used to be, which is a shame, you still have to get it absolutely bang on right. If you do get it wrong here, your lap's blown. And that's what I love about Imola, is there are parts of the circuit where if you do make a mistake, like we're seeing on screen, is that Pierre Gasly locking up, and no, it's Daniel Kvyat locking up and going straight on at the Tamburello chicane. What I love about Imola is that if you do get it even slightly wrong, your lap is, well, done. And that's why I said before we got underway that this circuit is a proper driver circuit, because it really does test the driver's skill, and it does show how good certain drivers are, because you've got to, around Imola, you've got to, even though it is a very tight circuit and there's plenty of pitfalls, you've got to attack the track. If you don't attack the curbs and the entries to the corners, you won't get the lap time. So, having the balance of attacking the track as hard as possible and not making the mistakes that cost you time, it really does show how good of a driver you are. So that's what I'm really looking out for in this session, and also for qualifying later on, as Kvyat is coming up to the back of a Williams soon as he comes through the Variante Alta. As currently on the TV broadcast, we're looking at Christian Horner, who is looking back at one of his drivers. So, let me, once they come back from this split screen view, which of course Sky F1 are famous for using this fucking split screen view, I'll make sure to update the order 13 minutes in or 14 minutes in to practice 1. I can tell you that Max Verstappen is P1 at the moment. And second, Esteban Ocon. Third, Carlos Sainz. Fourth, Daniel Kvyat. And then Perez, Stroll, Hamilton, Leclerc, Albon, Raikkonen. Then Ricciardo, Vettel, Grosjean, Norris, Latifi, Magnussen, Russell, Bottas, Giovinazzi, and Gasly. Gasly, though, hasn't set a proper lap time. He had a lap time deleted for track limits as Charles Leclerc goes up to third. So, let me try and do some of this order. So, Max Verstappen is P1, 6/10 clear of Esteban Ocon. So, Max looking already quick out of the blocks. And Charles Leclerc has had his time deleted for track limits, for track limit violation, of course. And the reason earlier I was saying Max Verstappen, I know, was going to be, very good around here is because, again, it's a driver's circuit, and he is one of the best on the grid. We know this. And it's definitely a track that Max, it is a typical track for Max where he can be great at. Because if you look at Max Verstappen, he's very, in my opinion, he's very similar to Michael Schumacher in terms of just his approach to racing and driving. And Michael, around Imola, as Pierre Gasly goes P1, Michael around Imola was incredible. Plenty of pole positions, race wins. There was even certain weekends or years where he didn't have the best car by an absolute mile, or, had the second or third best car on the grid and was still able to be on the front row or get pole position or win the Grand Prix. Thinking back, for example, to his early days at Ferrari. But yeah, he was still able to put it up there. And I think Max is going to be the same. He's going to be at the very worst in third place. But I wouldn't be surprised if he finished second. I don't think he'll win because, those Mercedes are pretty quick. And it's not like we are back in the days where it was unreliable cars that normally bad reliability you used to see that, caused sometimes freak wins and freak podiums, as Max Verstappen goes P1 again. That's why we've changed the order back. He's gone P1 by half a second on a 1 minute 16.2. Yeah, with Max, I think definitely he can get second. But yeah, I think definitely at least a podium for him in what has been another great year for Max Verstappen, as he is currently P1 so far in practice. And now, annoyingly, they have got rid of the running order, which is rather fucking annoying. So let me instead go to the live leaderboard on the F1 website. I think that will be probably easier. Let me have a quick look at the chat, see what you guys have to say. Lab Gorilla, great to see you, comments saying, Kaza, if Merc have already started working on next year's car, surely we are looking more of the same next year. Ferrari's clearly still working on this year as they are bringing upgrades. Yeah. I mean, F1's fucked for next year when it comes to Mercedes. Mercedes are going to completely obliterate the competition yet again. There is no contest. Mercedes are winning next year's World Championship, and if Lewis Hamilton does finally sign on for next year, then, you know, they're going to win. They're going to win the championship. Mercedes are going to absolutely destroy everyone out there without a shadow of a doubt. And that's the thing. Mercedes have brought a couple upgrades to their car. They've not been massive. They've been, you know, minor, to be honest. But this is how dominant they are. If they didn't want to bring, say, any upgrades to this car, say from the start of the season that started all the way back in Austria in early July, they would still be winning Grand Prix. I know Max Verstappen's been very quick in that, but they would still be winning. And winning quite comfortably. That's how good the car is. And the Red Bull has improved a bit, not massively, over the course of the year. But, you know, fundamentally, the reason Mercedes have been so good this year is because their car, from the outset, fundamentally, is the best car. Red Bull started the year very, you know, twitchy on the rear end and just not very good overall. And, you know, if you're going to win a world title, your car has to be, from the outset of a season, it has to be fundamentally good. You can't have a car that is not that good and needs quite a lot of work and expect to be winning Grand Prix all the time. But yeah, for next year, it'll be Mercedes winning every Grand Prix, basically, bar a couple freak races. And then, yeah, Red Bull should be better next year. I don't think they'll be that much better, but they should be a tad better, to be honest. And then after that, of course, you've got McLaren will have Mercedes power. Racing Point become Aston Martin. I think the third best team next year is most likely going to be McLaren because of Mercedes power. And even though Renault have had very good power levels this year, I still think the Merc is the power unit to have, as I've almost completed the running order. So I'll read it out in a moment as we're 20 minutes in here to practice here at Imola. So at the back, you've got Grosjean in 16th place. And then Latifi, Magnussen, and then Valtteri Bottas 19th. He hasn't really done a proper lap, though. He locked up quite heavily at turn 1. He didn't really go that wide, but it would have been quite a bad flat spot, so understandable why he hasn't really been up there. But there you go. That is the current running order. 20 minutes in. Max is P1 from Gasly, 2nd. Leclerc 3rd. Hamilton 4th. Kvyat 5th. And then Sainz, Norris, Ricciardo, Ocon, Albon. And then the rest of the field is Perez, Stroll, Russell, Raikkonen, Vettel, Grosjean, Latifi, Magnussen, Bottas, and Giovinazzi. So there you go. And Nib pointing out in the chat, 10 deleted lap times so far for track limit violations. It's good to see, though, because how many years have we been bitching and complaining that, you know, the track limits are not enforced, and they're not. Oh, well, they are now, but they weren't. They absolutely were not enforced. You know, there were some race weekends, especially at the COTA track, as Valtteri Bottas is now on medium tyres and goes up to 13th. There was honestly races at COTA, Circuit of America's track, that were just a complete joke. A complete joke. Drivers going blatantly miles off the circuit, with no real regard for track limits. And when I mean off the circuit, I don't mean just off of the, you know, over the white lines of the track. I mean fully over even the curbs. As Lewis Hamilton comes in for maybe a quick pit stop, I think. Yeah, I think it's pit stop practice at Mercedes. But yeah, it's great to see that finally it's took them so long, but it's great to see that finally they're actually enforcing it. Anyway, new picture on screen. And let me just adjust it a bit. As Sky have gone for an ad break. So we'll see what the order is when we come back. But there is... adjust it a bit more. So there you go. Max Verstappen on screen. And he is currently P1 with only about 24 minutes into the only practice session of the weekend so far. So yeah, whilst we're on ad break, guys, let me know in the chat, you know, if you want to ask me anything when it comes to Formula 1, or if you want to let me know how you all are, then go for it. I'm just going to quickly mute my microphone just to wipe my nose with a tissue. Don't worry, I've not got it. Not yet, anyway. But I just need to wipe my nose, because normally when I wake up so early in the morning, I do tend to have a cold. So just give me a second. Right, so there you go. All done. So let's have a look, see what you guys are saying. Yeah, Seki pointing out turn 12 at COTA. Well, not turn 12. What am I about? Turn 9. Jesus Christ. Yeah, that corner. I think that's probably the worst corner. Everyone likes to look at and point out the penultimate corner at that circuit, which you know, is still bad. But that one, I think, is even worse because, you know, they literally go into the corner and take the corner with the intention of going that far off the track. It's not like they wash out to that part of the track because the curb pulls them out there or it's windy at that part. It's not. It's because they carry the speed in, you know, intending to go that far off. It's just a joke. I mean, at least in the penultimate corner at that circuit, at least, you know, when you turn in, it is hard to keep all four wheels within, or, you know, to keep even two wheels within the white lines of the circuit and still push very hard. It is hard. So at least at that corner, it's hard. But, you know, at turn 9, they could go a lot slower, put it that way, in that corner. They really could. They don't have to go that quick. And we saw last year actually resulted in Sebastian Vettel breaking his suspension, going over those sawtooth curves and bouncing and bumbling over the curbs on the exit of that corner. Apparently problems for Antonio Giovinazzi, calling problems. That's why he is currently dead last. Lab Gorilla says, if Lewis wasn't in the competition, we would be having a tight battle between Bottas and Verstappen. Lewis is clearly the difference maker. I'd love to see Max in a Merc versus Lewis. I mean, who wouldn't? That would be probably the most exciting fight for a Drivers' World Championship, I think, of all time. Because you've got Lewis Hamilton, someone who I regard, and I'm going to make a video probably on it soon, a driver I regard as the greatest of all time, and a driver in Max Verstappen, who I think absolutely has the ability and the talent to be up there with Hamilton when he retires, and Schumacher, Senna, Fangio, Niki Lauda, all of those. I think he absolutely has the ability to be right up there. So that's why it would be the absolute fight of all time for a world championship between teammates, because you've got probably what could be looked upon as later on, once Max Verstappen gets to 35, 36, you could be saying that Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen are possibly the two greatest drivers of all time. Of course, a long way to go for that. As Valtteri Bottas goes P1 on medium tyres on a 1 minute 15.7. Impossible, to be honest, to say or talk about lap records, because the track is different compared to the last time we were actually here. There's no point talking about that. But yeah, Valtteri Bottas, with about an hour to go in the only practice session of the weekend. Valtteri Bottas is in first place. Second is Supermax, with the Gazman in third. And then Charles Leclerc is in fourth. Hamilton is in fifth. And then in sixth place, you have Eurobeat Intensifies in Daniel Kvyat. You have Carlos Sainz from Ferrari, if he could, in P7. In P8, you have the Milkman, Lando Norris. I'm just going to keep going with all these nicknames. In ninth place, you have Big Dick Danny Rick. And then in 10th, you just have Esteban Ocon, who's not exactly the most interesting driver on the grid. In 11th, you have Albon. Yes, the famous Albon. Who can not forget Albon? In 12th place, you have Bois and the Iceman. 13th is the Cook and the Baguette Man. 14th is Checo Perez. And then 15th is Lance Daddy Stroll. 16th is Mr. Saturday, George Russell, with an hour to go now in the final practice session. 17th is Suck My Balls Honey, Kevin Magnussen. 18th is Spinella, Sebastian Vettel. And then in 19th, you've got Nicholas Latifi, and 20th, Antonio Giovinazzi. So there you go. Those are all the nicknames I have for all of the drivers, as Magnussen now upsets the order and goes up to 15th. Let me quickly change that whilst I can. So Magnussen in 15th, dropping the stroller down to 16th. And then 17th, Russell, and then Sebastian Vettel. At the moment, 18th, but he has just come out, for all you Vettel and Ferrari fans and Spinella fans. He has come out on soft compound tyres, so don't worry. He's about to put in a mega lap, I'm sure, as Lance Stroll now goes up to P4. I'll wait to do the order again in a minute once everyone's completed their next set of laps, as Sebastian Vettel starts his run. But I think we're not going to see it, because now we have to see Martin Brundle on Sky F1 instead. And yes, that is the case, unfortunately, as he's watching the cars go through the Villeneuve chicane. Let me look at the chat quickly. Tonka saying Vettel is over the hill. I think with Vettel, Sebastian Vettel, look, is not going to be what he was in 2013 ever again, or 2015, or 2017. That Sebastian Vettel is gone. But the Sebastian Vettel we are seeing at the moment is not the best he could be doing, and that's mostly, I would say, this season to do with Ferrari. Of course, he's not driving at his best, and he hasn't been for quite a while, but the car is undrivable for him. We all know what he needs. He needs a car that when he puts his foot down on the exit of a corner or through a corner or is, braking late, he needs a rear end that is going to stick. If the rear end's not going to stick, Sebastian Vettel is going to end up looking very, say, average. But if you give him a car, like he's going to be in most likely next year, the Racing Point, well, he will be in that car next year, the Racing Point, or what is next year, the Aston Martin car. But if that car is as stable, as it has been this season, and if it is next season, then I think you will see Sebastian Vettel, next year, not be 2013 Sebastian Vettel or 2015 Sebastian Vettel, but I think you will see him at a lot higher of a level. And I think next year, honestly, in that midfield, the fight is going to be amazing. Alonso at Alpine, Ricciardo at McLaren, Leclerc at Ferrari, Sainz at Ferrari, Norris at McLaren, Vettel at Aston Martin. I mean, you could have literally fights in that midfield pack between Vettel, Alonso, Raikkonen, Ricciardo, Leclerc. I mean, those names, they're good enough to be fighting for victory every single weekend. But because of the way Formula 1 is at the moment, that is the midfield for next year, basically. But I really cannot wait for next season because, again, the fight in the midfield between those drivers in cars that are going to be about equal-ish, it's going to be great. It really is. And hopefully we do get a proper 23-race calendar that runs without cancellation, but hard to really say if that will absolutely be the case. As Carlos Sainz is starting a lap, I believe, in the McLaren. Let me try and see if I can grab a new picture quickly for you guys. Don't think so. I don't think I can at the moment. Let me just have another look. No, can't at the moment. But when I can, I will. So I'll wait for Carlos Sainz to finish this lap, and then I'll redo some of the order, as Max Verstappen is on an out lap now. Tom Walsh says, and by the way, hello to Astro Stevo. Nib saying 22 race calendar. We'll see. Tom Walsh saying Vettel will blame Aston Martin for his failures next year. I don't think he will. I don't think he will at all. I think, look, and I am going to do a video on this probably at some point. Don't know when, but probably at some point. As Carlos Sainz goes off at the final corner, goes through the gravel and rejoins. When it comes to his time at Ferrari, Sebastian definitely has to share quite a bit of blame for why it's not worked in terms of not winning a world title. He has to share quite a lot of that blame, but so do the team. And that's why, for me, it's kind of equally, they're both kind of equally to blame for why it didn't work out. Ferrari did not give Sebastian the support and just the support he needed to give him confidence. But also, Sebastian, at times, did not do well enough driving-wise to give the team that, confidence in him. So that's why I think it's really they're both equally to blame in why it's not worked. I don't think you can say the reason Sebastian Vettel has not won is because Ferrari are shit and Sebastian has driven near perfectly the entire time. I don't think that's the case. This is not, like when Fernando Alonso was at Ferrari, where most of the time Fernando was driving amazingly, but was let down by his team. I don't think it's like that. If you look at the car in terms of the pecking order and how quick the car was in that pecking order compared to the Ferrari that Alonso had in his time, Sebastian had a better chance at winning a title with the car he was given than Alonso did. The best car Alonso had was in 2010, and even that Ferrari wasn't that good. Probably at best the second best car, but you could probably even say the third best car, honestly, that season. Sebastian in 2017, 2018 had a car that could regularly fight for victories, and in 2018 I think it was the better car overall than the Mercedes. Fernando never had that. And, again, the reason Fernando and Ferrari failed is because Ferrari, as Nicholas Latifi pulls into the pits with a problem, I think, because Ferrari did not give Fernando a car regularly, consistently good enough to be fighting with Red Bull at the time for victories. For a couple years, and including last year, even though they did have an illegal power unit, I think that's pretty clear. They were easily good enough to win plenty of races, but as a unit, Vettel and Ferrari as a unit just failed. So I don't think, you can, if you are a Vettel fan, I don't think you can totally blame the team. You've got to look at it objectively. As Leclerc on team radio saying that the car is so understeery, what the hell? Welcome to Ferrari, even though you've been at the team for 2 years. Right, let me see if I can find a new picture quickly. But I will say, one thing I've missed about doing watch-alongs, especially for practice sessions, is the ability to just ramble a load of bullshit and have you guys join in my rambling. Right, I'll put this picture on screen of Darren Sainz quickly. Going off track, off piste. There you go. Let me just adjust it. Charles Leclerc goes 8th on soft compound tyres. Those soft compound tyres aren't looking great. I know Max is P1 on them, but they're not looking that great, to be honest. The mediums look quite a lot better, as Lewis Hamilton, I think, is about to go P1 on said medium compound tyres. No, he doesn't. He goes second, and is second by 8 thousandths of a second. That's another great thing at Imola, is the lap is so short that you can get very tight gaps in the field. As Ocon, I think, drove through the wrong pits there. I think he drove through the AlphaTauri pits and hit something and then went into the Renault pit box, I think. As then a Ferrari pulled up behind him. But we have 50 minutes to go in this only practice session. Alex Albon is on circuit on the mediums, and let's see where he goes. As Ricciardo goes up to 8th, I'll update the order in a moment. Albon goes 5th, a second off of Max Verstappen, and he was on a harder compound tyre, so that is, beneficial a bit more for Albon as to the gap, but I'm sure Max has a lot more pace in his car. So, let me update some of the order quickly. So at the moment, as Max Verstappen is still on said soft compound tyre, he is P1, 8 thousandths of a second clear of Lewis Hamilton, with Valtteri Bottas third. Imagine if that was the front three for qualifying. It could be. You never know. You know, with having only one practice session, if certain drivers, maybe the Mercedes drivers, struggle to keep consistency in their qualifying laps and end up making mistakes, and Max, you know, keeps on as he's been going so far in practice, you never know. He could end up on the front row or getting a pole position. Yeah, Gasly fourth. Another great performance by Pierre. Albon fifth. Sainz is sixth. And then you've got Sergio Perez in P7 ahead of his ex-teammate as Verstappen backs off at the final couple corners. Perez 7th, his former rival and teammate Ocon is 8th. As Leclerc goes up to 4th now. So I'll update that quickly. No, my luck though, he'll have his lap time deleted. As Max backed off, I think because of his teammate holding him up maybe, I don't know. Yeah, Charles Leclerc up to P4. And then Gasly 5th, Albon 6th. As Russell is on track, he's currently in 14th place, not looking too bad in the Williams. And he has, I think Russell honestly has had a great season. The problem is, again, the Williams car still is not quick enough. It's definitely not, you know, the absolute by a mile worst car on the grid like it was last year. And I think you have to, I won't say commend Williams, but you have to at least be happy that they have made a better car, even though, well, they should be making a better car, to be honest. As Ricciardo goes 7th. You know, if he had a car that was able, you know, that was definitely good enough to get into the second part of qualifying, and he didn't have to rely on his talent so much, I think he would have scored points by now this season. Because if, you know, if Alfa Romeo and Haas can score points this season, then, you know, he's definitely good enough to. And in what do you call it, in Mugello, I thought he was easily good enough for points there. It's a shame he didn't get a point, because he really did deserve it. Great drive for most of the Grand Prix. He was ahead of Sebastian Vettel, who couldn't really keep up with him. And I know, of course, the Ferrari car has its issues, but, you know, that's a very good, you know, drive right there that I think really did deserve points, but he just didn't get it, unfortunately. As he's coming to the line now to go up to 13th place, which is good because I'm just about to update that part of the order. So Russell 13th, and then Romain Grosjean in 14th. 15th is Daniel Kvyat. I just want to say, though, when it comes to the Haas drivers, I do kind of feel sorry for them this season. Because if you actually look at this season, they haven't actually been that bad, Magnussen and Grosjean. You know, they've had a lot worse races or times of a season than they've had this season. And I think they've really been hampered by the car this year. And you know, Kevin Magnussen, for example, I don't think will be on the grid next year, even though I think he is absolutely good enough to be on the grid. And honestly, I do think he is better than the man we're just seeing on screen, Alex Albon, having his time deleted, track limits. Yeah, you know, they've not had the car this year to really do anything. And I do feel sorry for them because, again, I think actually as a partnership, this has been their best, maybe most consistent year when it comes to, you know, pace and not crashing for quite a while. So it's a shame, but I think it was inevitable that they were going to get rid of someone. There you go. There is the running order now on your left-hand screen as Sky F1 now go to an ad break. So with 45 minutes to go in practice, Max Verstappen is P1, Lewis Hamilton P2, Valtteri Bottas 3rd, Leclerc 4th, Gasly 5th, Albon 6th, then Ricciardo, Sainz, Perez and Ocon complete the rest of the top 10. And then the rest of the field, Norris, Stroll, Russell, Grosjean, Kvyat, Raikkonen, Magnussen, Giovinazzi, Vettel and Latifi. So far, when it comes to the top 3, it's looking as I predicted. It's going to be Hamilton, Bottas, Verstappen in whatever order. And then after that, Leclerc 4th. I said that, before we started that this track is similar to the Nürburgring, and of course, at the Nürburgring, Charles qualified P4, so I guess that's not a massive surprise. Ricciardo P7, looking a lot better than the last race in Portimao. That's not a surprise. McLaren looking okay, I would say at the moment. Racing Point and McLaren, to be honest, look bang on equal. But if I was to say who had the best midfield car, it looks as though it's the Renault. I know Leclerc's 4th, but I think that's more Charles Leclerc being very, very good and having the car suited to his needs rather than the Ferrari actually being that good. So, yeah, I think Renault are looking pretty good here. And then after that, it looks as though Russell, if he continues as he's going, he should be able in qualifying to pull off another upset and get into Q2. And then we have a mega fight, of course, between Haas, Alfa Romeo, and Kvyat, Vettel, Latifi, and all of those drivers for the rest of the positions. I mean, just quickly though, wipe my nose again, and then I'll come back. Right, so now that that's done, let me have a look to see if we can throw up a new picture on screen. Yes, we can. And considering it is their home Grand Prix, then it is only right that I do post a picture of them on the screen. Quickly adjust it before they come back from the ad break on Sky. And there you go. Charles Leclerc, who is now, and going to be for a long time, Ferrari's #1 driver. Will it, though, result in a world championship? In my opinion, absolutely not. Not because Charles Leclerc's not good enough, but because his team is ran by clowns, as we know. So, yeah. Great to see, though, that despite all the issues, that he is still, kind of like Max Verstappen, doing the best he can with what he is given. And I don't think you can deny that he's doing the best he can, if not even more, with what he does have. So great to see from Mr. Leclerc. As we're now back from the ad break on Sky and seeing a replay of Valtteri Bottas kicking up some gravel on the exit at the final corner. That would have cost him probably a 10th or 2. The run to the line is right after that. So, yeah, it would have cost him some lap time, that. As Daniel Ricciardo has gone up to 6th place, as Carlos Sainz is on a lap on the soft compound tyre. As Romain Grosjean goes up to P11, I'll update the order soon once F1 has completed their next set of lap times. As Carlos Sainz coming through to the mid-sector before the very outer chicane. He's only a 10th off Max Verstappen so far. So this is a good lap, and this will probably land him 3rd or 4th. So good lap so far for a driver who will be driving for Ferrari and needs to get used to being in Italy from next year on. As he comes through the final corner where he kicked up gravel earlier on and goes P4. Only about 0.4 of a second off of Max Verstappen's P1 time so far, with 40 minutes to go in practice. As we're seeing a replay now, Kevin Magnussen at the very outer. All turns in. Rear end says no and has to go across the grass. And that's what I mean right there when I was saying the Haas drivers have not been helped out this year, because that car just isn't, the power unit, of course, doesn't help. The lack of power, but the overall car is horrible and it's not helping them. So I do feel sorry for them because they haven't been really given a chance this year to stake their claim for being on the grid. They really haven't. So it is a shame, but that's the way Formula One is. Yeah, I mean, countless drivers have ended up, falling by the wayside, not because they're not good enough, but because wrong place, wrong time when it comes to being in a certain team at a certain time. To be honest, though, I don't think it's a good thing really ever to be in the Haas F1 team, because I just don't see where that team is going. I mean, maybe as we've got a yellow flag in Sector 3, now it's clear. The track is now clear. If they don't get the next set of rules in 2022 right, in terms of getting into the midfield battle for proper, I really don't see where they go in Formula One. I don't see where they're going. They're just going to be a lower midfield team, really, forever. Kind of like a footwork or an Arrows type team. But then again, even Arrows had their days. But Haas have rarely had theirs in the last 2 or 3 years, as Lewis Hamilton is coming out on track on soft compound tyres, so expect him to obliterate, as Romain Grosjean goes P9. Expect him to obliterate Max Verstappen's P1 time of a 1:15.3. But let me come back to you guys in the chat quickly. See what you guys are saying. Don't Haas use Ferrari parts? Well, yeah, they do, but and that's another thing. Is like, when are they going to stop doing that? Because they can't get by on that forever. They can't expect to be, as Valtteri Bottas goes P1 on a 1:15.2. They can't expect to be a success in Formula One. Borrowing parts from here, there, and fucking everywhere. They've got to become, an independent team eventually, because, that system of borrowing parts, it worked 5 years ago. It was a good system, but with the new set of rules that are coming, as Max Verstappen now goes P1, don't know if that's because Bottas had a time deleted. With the new set of rules coming, if they're not going to be a lot more independent, then I really don't see the point of them being in Formula One in the first place. Because, them borrowing all those parts was under the, well, not under the guise, but it was, we clearly know what they were doing. They were trying to give themselves the best possible chance and best possible start in Formula One and not end up like a Caterham or a Manor. And it worked. And, great. But you can't be a success in Formula One when you're borrowing from everyone. As Lewis Hamilton is 6 thousandths of a second quicker than Max Verstappen in the first sector, but that first sector is slower than his personal best as he comes up to the middle sector. That Mercedes does look absolutely on rails. Not on rails enough, though, as he's still 0.2 of a second down on Max Verstappen, as he now comes down to the final 2 corners, the 2 Ravazzas. And goes into the final corner. And car looking very nice. Will he get P1? He will not. He will go P2. So it is as you were in those positions. I'll come back to the chat in a moment, guys, to read out some other comments, because I've seen a couple others that, questions that people are asking. So I'll make sure to read those in a moment. Just want to redo the order quickly. with 35 minutes to go in practice, as we're seeing a replay of Hamilton bouncing over the curbs at turn 15. And, well, with the new rule about using just one engine mode from Saturday practice on, as we're seeing a replay of some very close racing from Magnussen and Carlos Sainz, I believe. No, Lando Norris. I completely forgot what I was going to say. Anyway, let's wait for this replay to end. And then I can do the running order. So, it is, Verstappen P1, Hamilton P2, Bottas P3. And now it is Lance Stroll 4th and Perez 5th. The Racing Point. And now I remember what I was saying. With the new rule now that you can only use one engine mode from Saturday practice on, I don't think we can really say that this is, Mercedes turning the power unit down. Maybe they're using more fuel. That could be a reason. Another reason why they're sandbagging. Maybe the drivers aren't pushing absolutely as hard as they can. But, Max is definitely looking in there. He's definitely in there in case one of the Mercs isn't quick enough, or if both Mercs, by some miracle, are not quick enough. But I still think Mercedes have the car, and Lewis Hamilton and Valtteri Bottas are going to be the drivers to beat for Max Verstappen. I don't think Max is, even though he's P1, I don't think he is favourite here at all. Never count out the silver arrows. That's what I've learned since 2014. So Stroll 4th, Perez 5th, Leclerc 6th, Gasly 7th, and then Ricciardo 8th. Alex Albon is in 9th place. I don't know if Albon has done a soft tyre run yet, but even if he, let's say that time is on mediums, it's not good enough. 1.3 seconds off. If you take away the time that is given away because he's on mediums, he would still be 7 or 8 tenths off Max Verstappen. That's not good enough. As Lewis Hamilton goes P1 by 3 tenths of a second on a 1:14.7. Great lap. But Albon, still very slow and not good enough. And it's actually a shame that is the case, because I actually think if you go back and look at the last 2 qualifying sessions of the season, at Portimao, of course, last week, and the Nürburgring 3 weeks ago, I actually think maybe not his position, but his pace in qualifying compared to Max, considering the circumstances that he's not always given the same parts as Max Verstappen and doesn't get the same support. His pace compared to Max, considering that, was still pretty good. Only half a second off. That's what I would hope for, considering those circumstances. But, if you're 7 or 8 tenths of a second off or more, then it becomes, kind of indefensible at that point. As Esteban Ocon, I think, is on a lap. Let's see where he goes. He's currently P12. Comes to the line. And he goes up to 6th place. Let me update that quickly. As get this done before all the times go haywire again, as they normally do. Gasly in 8th place, and then Ricciardo 9th, as Lewis Hamilton, I think, is on another lap now. And Albon, in 10th place. And, if Albon at the moment if Albon has only done a medium tyre run, then at the moment he should be, say, around Stroll Perez. He should be in P4. He really should. Even though he has done only one run on the medium tyres, he should be in P4. Now does go P4, but I think it was on soft tyres. If it was on mediums, though, that'd be great. But I think it was on soft compound tyres. And he's still, though, 1.3 seconds off. and 1.1 off his teammate. So Albon now up to 4th, and you have Stroll in 5th, and Perez 6th, and Ocon as Ricciardo lets through in Alfa Romeo, I think, at the final corner before he starts his run. And then rest of the top 10 is Leclerc, Gasly, and Ricciardo. Ricciardo is now on a lap, though, so is probably going to smash his way through or past, being P10. So, yeah, that's the top 10. And then Grosjean is P11 from Carlos Sainz in 12th. McLaren not looking that quick at the moment. Hopefully they do improve. Norris is then 13th in the other McLaren, ahead of Russell, who is in 14th place. Very impressive so far from Russell. And then 15th Giovinazzi, 16th is K-Mag, and then you've got Kvyat and Raikkonen, 17th and 18th, and then Latifi 19th, and dead last is Sebastian Vettel. Daniel Ricciardo comes up to the line and goes P4, ahead of his teammate, who just went P4 briefly. And also goes ahead of Albon. So let me quickly update that and also update P1 as well. So P1, with about just over 25 minutes to go in practice 1. The only practice session of this weekend is Lewis Hamilton. And it's Verstappen 2nd, Bottas 3rd. And then Ricciardo, Ocon. Once I update the order this time, I'll be leaving it definitely for a few minutes because I'll end up be doing this for the rest of the session. So Ricciardo, Ocon, Albon, and then Stroll in P7 with Perez 8th, and then Leclerc in 9th and Gasly in 10th. And I'll leave the rest of the order for now to give my arms a rest. I'll leave it for about 5 minutes or so before I update it again. As Albon does improve his lap time, but does not move up the order. Stays in 6th place. 1 second off his teammate. I'd love to know what tyres he's on. That would help indicate how either quick or slow he is. Stella says, by the way, great to see you as well here. Says, Ocon has had a quiet season, in my opinion, consistent and does not get in trouble. He has had a quiet season, but I don't think that's a good thing. I think that's actually quite bad. Esteban, this season, needed to prove that he was as good as people were saying he was, and he hasn't. He's proven that he is simply a midfield driver, which, again, there's nothing wrong with. But he is not at the level of Max Verstappen, or Charles Leclerc, or Carlos Sainz, or Sebastian Vettel, or Daniel Ricciardo, or Fernando Alonso. He's not at that level. We know that now. The level he's at is Perez, who I think is better than him, Hülkenberg, Stroll, who else? Albon. That's his level. I think there's nothing wrong with that, but that's his level. But I think this season, there's been races where he's done well, but there's been other races where he's been basically irrelevant compared to where his teammates been. So I think, to be honest, Esteban, when he looks back at this season, will probably think he could have done quite a bit more, considering his teammate has a podium And I know you'll say, well, Renault weren't expecting podiums this year, and it's not exactly like they are absolutely quick enough to get that. But, that podium that Ricciardo got, it was coming for a long time. It's not like it was out of the blue and no one ever thought he'd get a podium and he was not in contention at any other race. He could have got one in Mugello, at Monza, at Spa, Silverstone. He could have got one in that first Silverstone race. So I think when you look back at Ocon, as Sky now go to an ad break, when you look back at Ocon for this season, I think you'll look back and think, yeah, could have done a lot more considering what his teammate has been doing. Right, let me find a new picture to put on screen if I can. Can't at the moment, so I'll leave the picture on screen that is on there. Yeah, we have just over 23 minutes to go until the session is over. And of course, qualifying starts at 1 p.m. UK time, which is in just over 3 hours. And remember, guys, I will be live for qualifying at 12:30. That's half an hour before qualifying gets underway. And then obviously, we'll do the build-up, do qualifying, and then, of course, I'll react with you guys to what happened for, say, 15 or 20 minutes after qualifying has finished. So don't forget to come on to that. Also, if you are new, subscribe for more content like this. And when you do, hit the notifications bell so you're notified as to when I go live again. Just to let you guys know, though, I will not be doing a race watch-along. The 2 watch-alongs I'm doing today are simply a test to as to whether I want to come back to doing this full-time. So if I do enjoy myself and I can see myself doing this full-time and I can design a schedule that I can do and not feel, massively depressed about, then I'll, come back to doing it. But for this weekend, the plan is, obviously I'm doing this stream right now, and then at 12:30 till 2:30, I'll be doing qualifying. And then, tomorrow there won't be a race watch along, but I will be doing a race reaction at around 2:30 UK time tomorrow, which will be 45 minutes-ish after the race finishes. Maybe I'll go live at 2:45. We'll see tomorrow, but it'll probably be around 2:30 where I'll go live tomorrow to talk about the race and react to what happened. Hopefully react to what happened, to some mental event happening. Hopefully. But you never know. In Formula 1, you never know whether you're going to get an absolute classic or an absolute bore fest. Which I kind of love it being that way. Right, let me have a look at the chat quickly. Albon is underperforming. Ewok says Albon sounds like he's always struggling. Ahmed says, says Red Bull equals Max car. I think, again, that's why I say with Albon, you can't expect him to be right up there with Max Verstappen, and that's why I say that he should, if he's half a second off Max in every qualifying session, and for me, in qualifying, he has done good enough. The problem, though, is that when he is half a second off, he's then in the pack and then gets held up and then ends up finishing miles off his teammate. If he was half a second off Max but only one position behind, he wouldn't finish, in terms of time, so far behind. So, I think, honestly, the only way to get Albon to get better results is to make a better car. If they make a better car, that's clearly separated from the midfield, because this current Red Bull isn't. I know Max is very quick at the moment, but again, it's designed absolutely to Max's, needs from a Formula 1 car. If it was if both cars were the same and were clearly separated from the midfield, then I think you would see Albon a lot more confident, and you would see Albon just be better overall. But because that car isn't that good, that's why he is or has been struggling. As we now come back from the ad break on Sky with 19 minutes to go, the order is about the same. I might as well update it again whilst most cars are in the pits. As we're currently looking at Max Verstappen. I don't know if he is on a race run or if this is a one-lap run. I think it's a race run, a quick race run before the session is over. So, the changes to the order is Kvyat up to P11, dropping Romain Grosjean down to P12, and then in 13th place is Sainz, and 14th Norris. And I saw someone in the chat a minute ago saying McLaren are so bad. It's only practice, but then again, this is the only practice. So, if it's because the car isn't good enough, then they're in trouble, clearly. Because if that is where they end up qualifying, then that is a massive blow in the Constructors' title fight. Well, not for the title, obviously. That always is reserved for the Silver Arrows. But, the fight for third place, that would be a massive blow if they qualified there. So 15th, Russell. 16th is Antonio Giovinazzi. 17th is Kevin Magnussen, as Sebastian Vettel comes into the pits on soft tyres. 17th Magnussen, and then Raikkonen, Latifi, and Vettel. There you go. Let me quickly see if I can find a new picture now to post on the screen. Actually, I'll post this, and it's a very nice picture, and also very nice tribute done by Pierre Gasly, who of course has had plenty of partake in his time when it comes to drivers leaving this planet. And you can see there, and I'll readjust it, a nice tribute to the fallen hero that is, of course, Ayrton Senna. Nice Senna tribute helmet there. I'll, hold on. Just pull it down a bit. There you can see. A bit bigger. Hold on. So, see there, the tribute from Gasly. The yellow and the green. Great little tribute there from Pierre. Yeah, 15 minutes to go. And to be honest, I don't think we're going to get that many new lap times on the board because, of course, with there only being one practice session for this weekend, they've got to try eventually and get some, and even if it's only a few laps, they've got to get some race runs in so they can have some data for the Grand Prix as to the performance of the soft tyre, the medium, and the hard. So it looks as though AlphaTauri are putting a new front wing on their car. Don't know if it's a new front wing in terms of an upgrade or it's just another front wing because Gasly damaged his earlier, as Antonio Giovinazzi goes P14 in the Alfa Romeo. And I will say, it's good to see, as I said earlier, that Antonio will be on the grid in 2021, because I think if that car was at the level pace-wise of an AlphaTauri, I think you'd be very surprised as to how good Antonio is. So I'm very pleased that he's on the grid for 2021. And if that Alfa Romeo is, say, at the level of an AlphaTauri pace-wise next season, I wouldn't be surprised if Antonio ends up being some people's, not obviously driver of the season, but, impressing a few people. Because he certainly has impressed me since midway through 2019. You guys will remember, going into 2019 and halfway through 2019, I did not think he was good enough. But what I love about him, and what I love also about Gasly, is they've proven me wrong. Gasly has proven me wrong. He has proven that he is good enough. I think the problem that Gasly had at Red Bull was the same as Albon had, didn't have equal parts at times, but also Pierre Gasly was not ready to be in the Red Bull. He needed another year in the Toro Rosso before he was ready to get in that car. But because of Ricciardo leaving, they couldn't go for anyone else, really. So, yeah. I mean, of course, in hindsight, they would have kept Gasly in the Toro Rosso, and with Ricciardo leaving, they would have put maybe, I don't know, someone who isn't in the Red Bull driver program in that car. I'm trying to think who was on the grid in 2018, who they could have put in. Not Ericsson. Definitely not Ericsson. Maybe they could have gone for Kimi Räikkönen for a year. Who knows? I mean, he has had some sort of partnership, I think, in the past with Red Bull when he was doing rallying, and also when he was at Sauber all the way back in the day. But what's the point I'm trying to make? Yeah, with Gasly, the reason he failed at Red Bull was, again, he wasn't given equal treatment totally by Red Bull, but also he just wasn't ready. He wasn't ready to be in that car and to have that pressure on his shoulders. He needed another year in the Toro Rosso. And now he's had, that extra time in a midfield car to hone his craft. Now you can see how good he is. Now, I'm not saying if you put him in the Red Bull, he's going to be great. I still think if you put him in the Red Bull, he will not be anywhere near Max Verstappen, because I do think Max Verstappen is just that good. And also, that team is totally dedicated towards Max Verstappen. But I think he would do better than what he did last time in comparison, but it would still not be really anywhere close to Mad Max, as, at the moment, no one really going for a proper quali run. I think it's now race runs for the final 10 minutes or so in practice. Right, let me look at the chat quickly. Brooksfoot saying, great job, Chazza. Got to get some stuff done before quali. See you there. Thanks for coming along, mate. Ahmad, you think AlphaTauri can overtake Ferrari in the Constructors? I do. And to be honest, they would have by now if Charles Leclerc wasn't so good. But Leclerc has bailed out Ferrari so many times this season. The podium in Austria, the podium at Silverstone, the podium. They haven't had a podium since, have they? No, I don't think they have. But, he's bailed them out so many times. Without him, Ferrari would be not only 7th in the Constructors, they'd be 7th and be quite a bit behind AlphaTauri. So, they can. The only thing is, if Charles Leclerc keeps doing what he's been doing in the last couple of races and puts his car in amazing positions considering the actual pace of the car, then Ferrari will keep P6. But if Leclerc, if his level drops or the Ferrari car gets worse, and it will definitely when we go to Bahrain, because those two races, Ferrari are going to be nowhere. If Leclerc, from now on, his level drops and he scores a lot less points, then I think they probably will beat Ferrari to 6th. And I hope they do, because they deserve it. They've won a race this season. Ferrari haven't. That just makes Ferrari's season look even worse than it's been. And it's been very bad, as we know. But, considering what they've done this season and what they've been like in the last year or two, they've had 3 podiums since the start of 2019. If I told you at the start of 2019 that in 2019 and 2020, Toro Rosso, later AlphaTauri, would have 2 podiums and a race win, you would laugh. Not only would you laugh, you would call me a nutcase and tell me to put a tinfoil hat on. So I think, considering what they've done in the last couple of years, I really do think they deserve it, and I hope they get it. Only problem is, Charles Leclerc, he's so damn good that he will probably bail Ferrari out of that massive pothole of that they could possibly fall into, of not even being the best Italian team on the grid. As Lando Norris, who is currently 15th, goes on soft tyres up to P5. Well, the order, I think, is going to change around quite a bit in a moment, because we've now got most cars on track, and we've got about 8.5 minutes to go. So I'll make sure to update the order soon, once everything settles down a bit. But I think it's about to, the order is about to go absolutely crazy in a moment. Ewok, asking, do you think Mercedes will qualify on mediums? Yes. And if Max does have the gap that he currently has to the rest of the field, say from Ricciardo down, I think Max should also go for the medium tyre. Now, I know you may be saying, well, if he's going to beat Mercedes, he's got to do something different. Well, look at Portimao. He did something different. He started on the soft, the Mercs started on the mediums, and you saw how well that worked out. He ended up being just miles off the pace. Not because he was miles off the pace with himself, but because those tyres were just absolutely terrible. And I think if he was to start on the soft compound tyre, yeah, he'll get good bite off the line, but if he doesn't gain the position at the start, then it's completely useless him being on that tyre. So I think the best thing to do is to be on the medium and, you know, hope to stay close enough until the pit stops, and then try and either undercut or overcut to gain a position. But I don't think, you know, if he does have the gap he does currently have to the rest of the midfield in qualifying, then I don't think going for the soft tyre is a smart thing to do. Because I think in the race, you will see the tyres degrade quite a bit, because there are quite a lot of fast corners here at Imola. And of course, fast corners do hurt the tyres the most. As currently Pierre Gasly on circuit, currently in 6th place. Only a 10.5 off of being in 4th. And he's on another lap. And he has improved on his first sector time so far. And his second sector time is also a personal best. And he's on course to go P4 with this lap. What a great season he's had. And to be honest, he's had such a great season, and I've enjoyed watching him this season so much that I really just love watching him drive. That he's been that good. And I really hope that he has every weekend just a really good weekend, because he does deserve it. As he goes P4. And 2/10 clear of Ricciardo. A great lap there from Pierre Gasly. As we're seeing a replay now, Kevin Magnussen at the Variante Alta. What does he do this time? The second part of the chicane goes over the orange, or not orange, but yellow sausage curb. Loses control of the car and goes wide on the medium compound tyre. So, yeah, struggling to get to grips with the track at the moment, as we've got 5 minutes to go in the session. So I may as well wait till the session ends before I do the order again. So I'll wait till it ends. But at the moment, it's Hamilton from Verstappen second, Verstappen 3/10 off Lewis Hamilton, and then Bottas is third. Bottas is half a second off of Lewis Hamilton, and then Gasly fourth, Ricciardo fifth, Albon sixth. Or Ocon sixth, rather. Albon seventh, and then Stroll, Kvyat, Perez. But yeah, once a session, if I can speak, finishes, I'll make sure to update the order. And they've just showing on the screen laps completed, and Bottas and Daniel Kvyat have completed the most laps, 42 for both. As Charles Leclerc starts probably one of his final runs of practice, let's see what he can do in the Ferrari. As he comes to the Villeneuve chicane, great corner. Car looks stable enough so far. And, well, he hasn't actually improved on his first sector time. Sebastian Vettel has finally done a personal best. Hopefully he will do a lap time that does not see him still in last place. That lap time that he has done so far in last place, though, was on the hard compound, so that's why he is dead last. As Charles Leclerc is not improving on this lap at all, and yeah. Oh, no, he is now. So they got it wrong briefly. He is improving on his middle sector, but will it be enough to improve from P11? Let's see. Comes around the final corner, the second Ravazza comes to the line, and he goes P7, which is not bad, but not great. As Sebastian Vettel goes P12, only a tenth and a half slower than his teammate. If he could be a tenth and a half of his teammate in qualifying, then I'd think you'd have to say good drive from Sebastian Vettel. But we know that's a rare case that Sebastian can get that close to Charles. As Kvyat, bit of oversteer on the entry to Ravazza 1. As Kvyat apparently saying on team radio, there's something loose in the cockpit hitting my hand. As he goes P7. AlphaTauri looking pretty quick. Maybe not as quick as Renault. I think Renault probably still have the best midfield car. But AlphaTauri looking quick. They've looked quick all session. So great lap by Kvyat and great lap by Gasly as well. So yeah, great home race so far. Home race weekend so far for AlphaTauri. Ewok doesn't look good for Ferrari this time. Yeah, it doesn't quite look as though Charles Leclerc is going to be able to, you know, do his usual stunning drive to get into, say, 4th, 5th, or 6th. Currently in 8th. He's not far off 5th. He's only 0.2 of a second off, but we know the Ferrari is not as quick as the Renault. We know that. So if Leclerc does get up there with the Renaults, it's because of him, not because of the car. That car is, at best, I would say 6th, where it is in the Constructors. Probably, I'd say so far in qualifying, in practice, they look as though they have, say, the 7th best car out there. There's a massive traffic jam at the final corner. Jesus Christ. Up 5 cars. McLaren following closely behind a Red Bull. Hopefully no accident. Down into turn 1. Oh, dearie me. What is going on? Gonna be an accident. Please don't. Oh, Jesus Christ. Alfa Romeos and McLarens and Red Bulls everywhere. If this happens in the race, then great, but there are cars everywhere, all at the same part of the circuit. And, yeah, hopefully we don't get a situation like in Portimao with Verstappen and Stroll, because there's only one practice session, and if you didn't know, if I didn't mention it for the millionth time, you know, they don't want to end up taking a front corner off the car with only, you know, 2.5 hours until qualifying. As, Mercedes goes off track briefly. As Charles Leclerc now does go up to 5th. Great lap by him, just under a second off Lewis Hamilton in P1. Becky's saying second Bahrain race is going to be fun. It will. Not for Ferrari. If you're for Ferrari. If you are Ferrari, you're going to not even want to turn up to that Grand Prix because it'll be a completely pointless exercise. But the session is basically over. So there you go, FP1 over. I'll just post one final picture before we get to the end of the stream. So, let me get it up. Adjust it quickly. So, here is, obviously, as I was talking about a moment ago, Kevin Magnussen bouncing over the curbs at the Variante Alta. And yeah, struggling quite a bit in that Haas F1 car. As you can see there, let me just enlarge it a bit more. There you go. See, right there. So, practice 1 is over. Just rewind my tally so I can update the order. So, the only practice session of the weekend has finished. And here is your final classification of the session. So Lewis Hamilton P1 from Max Verstappen 2nd and Valtteri Bottas in 3rd. Pierre Gasly 4th in the AlphaTauri. Imagine if he does that in qualifying. Honestly, I hope he does. Because that'd be great. For him to continue his Italian, his spectacular Italian performances. If you know what I mean. Charles Leclerc P5. That'd be great if we could get that for the team. Ricciardo 6th, Ocon 7th. Honestly, I would say Renault have the quickest midfield car and are definitely looking good as I expected. Daniel Kvyat 8th. AlphaTauri look as though they are probably in with a good chance of, getting definitely one car into the top 10, maybe both. And then in 9th place, you have Alex Albon. He's done, isn't he? He really is. I mean, he's a second off Max Verstappen on the same tyre. Not good enough, I'm afraid. If he was only half a second off, he would be probably P4 or P5, where he should be. But P9 and a second off Max is not good enough, I'm afraid. And then P10 and P11, quietly going along. Stroll and Perez. By the way, we'll get to McLaren in a moment, but I have noticed that McLaren, their best lap times have been done on the mediums. So, look out for them in qualifying because they are not quite revealing their hand so far. 13th, though, Romain Grosjean. Good to see him not crashing. And then 14th is Carlos Sainz in the McLaren. Then 15th is Antonio Giovinazzi in the Alfa Romeo. Good to see him performing well on his home track. And then Norris 16th, Raikkonen 17th, and then Russell is 18th ahead of Kevin Magnussen in 19th place. And in 20th place is Nicholas Latifi. So in terms of the pecking order, of course, Mercedes do have the best car. Max is looking very quick. I don't think he'll get pole, but he's looking quick. And then after that, I'd say the best 3 midfield teams are probably Renault, AlphaTauri, and Racing Point at the moment, you'd have to say. McLaren, we don't really know yet. We'll have to see in qualifying. But yeah, Renault, AlphaTauri, and Racing Point. Ferrari with Leclerc looking good, but I don't think that's because of the car. I think that's because of him. Albon has got to improve. He's got to get some lap time out of his. Got to bring something out of his pocket if he wants to be in the position that Red Bull need him to be in. Yeah, with McLaren again, we'll see what they can do. Can't really say at the moment. Again, their best times on the medium compound. And then, the final 3 teams, I think you'd have to say that Alfa Romeo are probably looking like they have the best car. I know Grosjean is 13th, but out of those 3 teams, I think Alfa Romeo are probably just ahead. And then it is Haas and then Williams at the very back. But guys, that is it for this practice watch along. Thank you for coming along for the first watch along back since February. Jesus Christ, it has been a long year, hasn't it? Since February. Yeah, thank you guys for coming along, being part of the stream, commenting on the live chat, liking the video. If you haven't liked it, then make sure to do so. And again, I will be live at 12:30 p.m. UK time, so in just under 2 hours time for qualifying. I'll make sure to schedule the stream for that as soon as possible, so you guys can sit in the stream in the stream chat and wait for the stream to start. And then yeah, I'll be live half an hour before qualifying until about half an hour after qualifying, so for about 2 hours. So hopefully I will see you guys there for what I'm sure will be an exciting qualifying session. Don't forget to like this video, share this video, subscribe to the channel, all of that good stuff. Also, don't forget to check out my latest recorded video, a weekend review of the Portuguese Grand Prix. So in between the time of these two streams, make sure to go and watch that. It's only 12.5 minutes. Just a quick and hopefully fun weekend review of that Grand Prix last weekend. So make sure to check that out. And yeah, until qualifying, guys, I will see you all